time for your weekly financial workout with your elite personal trainers, Ryan and Bob Payne, guiding you on how to build a stronger and more robust financial plan. So get ready. We're about to pump you up. Live from the greatest city in the world, this is No Pain, No Gain.
Good morning. It's No Pain, No Gain Financial Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Payne, president of Payne Capital Management, along with our Chief Investment Officer, the man with the plan, and of course my father, Big Bob Payne. Good morning, Dad. What's shaking this morning?
And, good morning, Ryan. Things are looking good. Good news from Florida, and beautiful day here Sunday. Just gorgeous weather, and looking forward to the fall.
Good. I was getting concerned about the jacuzzi, Bob, because when I come visit you in Florida this winter, I want that jacuzzi ready.
I'll do my best, son. I'll do my best.
So make a mental note. Well, we have a great show this morning to help you on your path to financial freedom. We're going to talk about urgency. Stop procrastinating on dealing with your finances. Bob and I are going to discuss why you need to start planning for your future right now. We're going to talk about fourth quarter planning. It's hard to believe, but we're down to the home stretch here in 2017. We only have about 3 months to go. So what end-of-year planning do you need to implement before 2018? So we're going to talk about that along with this week's financial pornography, a lot out there that we want to avoid in the news and the media to make sure that you stay on track with your investments. And of course, our Spotlight segment, where we're actually going to review a real retirement plan. We're going to highlight some of the flaws or mistakes, or what we call pain points, so you can avoid that as well. So let's get right to it. Let's talk about a sense of urgency. Let's be honest. It's very easy to procrastinate when it comes to dealing with your financial planning issues. So let's talk about some scenarios, Bob, that might cause you to maybe have a little bit more urgency. And the one I think about, the obvious one, is, well, a rapidly approaching retirement.
Well, that's you're talking about me, I assume, right, son?
Oh, no. You're working for a long time, Bob.
For a long time, okay. I thought average retirement was 65, so I find out it's not. It doesn't work that way anymore?
Not at Payne Capital Management.
Okay, well, in lieu of that, I think everybody should be always focused on all their key financial goals. I mean, one thing we hate to do financial planning is, number one, we have to talk about our own mortality. Last I checked, there's only two things in life that are guaranteed, and that's taxes and death. The other thing is, we can't work forever. I mean, I know you want me to work forever, but I know one day I may not, but even though I love what I do. But you really have to be prepared. We got a really good client who's a physician, one of the top pulmonary specialists in the country. And boy, you can't even talk to him about retirement. He goes ballistic. But another way to look at it is, do we have enough money to do whatever you want, right? Have you created a financial security? And that's where you really have to sit down and have a couple of key items, right? The first thing is a budget. Why are people so reluctant to write down a budget, right?
Because I think you're scared, right? I mean, the big thing is you don't want to know what all those frivolous expenses you've been spending money on. And a lot of times I will say this when we run a budget for you, you're actually pleasantly surprised. It's never as bad as you think when you actually go through the expenses and you start to see. And it just seems like a lot of work, right? Sitting down, going through a credit card statement, trying to figure out where all the money's going. It sounds like homework. I don't know about you, Bob. I hate homework.
I agree, Ryan. Most people do. And that's what's nice about that 360 financial portal, because you can have all of your expenses automatically downloaded, and it does a budget for you. So for any of our clients who are a little reluctant, it's nice we can automate that. Second thing you got to think about is have a portfolio that generates income, right? You work your whole life to accumulate wealth. You're building a portfolio in terms of creating wealth. But now you have to make sure that your portfolio can transition to an income-generating portfolio. So that's, the second item. Third item is to make sure you're prepared for long-term care. It's a big issue. What do you find with most of the cases you work on, Rye, in terms of preparedness for long-term care?
I see zero, because I find that, and I talk about this on the show often, is most of your wealth projections or the retirement projections you've had run for yourself, or maybe you've run them for yourself with an online calculator. You don't factor in those medical costs. And that is the one cost that is going to be more prevalent now than it ever was before, because of medicine, because we're living longer, a longer life means more chance for health issues. And the big decision you have to make is, am I going to self-insure in retirement, or do I need to get some sort of insurance policy? Can you self-insure, or do you have to basically delegate that out or hedge your risk out of it? And the way I look at it is, you have to say, can my portfolio take a $250,000 plus hit, and can I still maintain my lifestyle regardless?
No, that's a great point. And so there are 3 of the 4 things, right? Have a budget, make sure you have an income generating portfolio or passive income stream coming in. Make sure you account for long-term care and health issues. And the 4th and most important thing is, be prepared to enjoy your life. What are your hobbies going to be? Are you going to spend more time with your grandchildren? Are you going to spend more time in your other passions, pursuing your other passions? Make sure you have hobbies. You've been working your whole life, putting in that 9 to 5. You got to be prepared for that transition. And that can be very psychologically challenging for people and can be very difficult. So I don't have any grandchildren, son. So what hobby should I get ready for as I think about my own retirement?
I mean, isn't work a hobby at this point, Bob? You enjoy working with your son so much that you wouldn't want to do anything else?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. So what about an issue where, you have one spouse who focuses on all the finances? What happens in the event that spouse predeceases the spouse who's not interested? Yeah. How do you get prepared for that?
This happens all the time, and this is what I see one of the biggest issues right now is if you're the spouse and you love to handle the finances, most likely it's you and it's not your other spouse. And the one thing that I think is very top of mind for everybody right now is, if, God forbid, I pass away and I run everything, my spouse has no idea what to do. In some cases, just writing a check. I have a client that I met with recently where his wife didn't know where anything was, and he was so concerned about it. He had stuff everywhere, and we finally said, look, let's sit down, and that's why we created this. We talk a lot about it these days. Our 360 portal is, let's just put everything in one place, because that's the biggest issue. I had a client recently, unfortunately, who had a stroke, completely incapacitated, and he had stuff everywhere. His wife came to see us, and she didn't know where anything was, and it took us months to find those insurance policies that were hidden in cabinets, savings bonds that were in safes, like hidden in the closet as well. The one thing with technology now, it gives you the ability to really have things squared away in one place as opposed to all different places in the house. I think the biggest thing is getting everything together and getting in one place where the spouse can access it, God forbid something happens to you.
Boy, the worst scenario that I've ever seen was we had a client pass away. This is before they were actually clients of ours. Her husband passed away, and all she could find was a safety deposit key. No list of where the bank was or where it fit. She had to go to every bank in town and found out that the entire net worth of their household was in that safety deposit box. This is back when you had certificates of securities. You didn't have it in a custodian relationship like you do at Fidelity, or she had to borrow money to buy food because she didn't have a checking account. She didn't know where anything was because of the sudden loss of her husband. Wow. So we don't want that to ever happen to anybody, and there's no reason for it to ever happen again.
Yeah, and if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I need to make sure that I have everything in one place. I have an income plan when I'm ready to retire. Here's your shot to get a full review. Get it done today if you're one of the next 10 callers and you have over $200,000 saved for retirement. Bob and I will run for you our total financial master plan, and we'll do it with no obligation or cost. That's a full review that looks at everything. So if you bring in last year's tax return, we'll have our CPA partner review it. Make sure you're not paying unnecessary taxes. Money saved in taxes is just as green as any money you can make invested. Don't forget that. If you bring in your legal docs, dust them off. If they're in the closet, in the safe, bring them in. We'll have our estate planner review them. It's probably been about 10 years, and she'll make sure that everything is up to date and what changes you may want to make to your estate plan. And then bring in all those statements from all the different financial institutions as those envelopes come in this month. We'll sort them all out, and we'll break everything out for you on our very simple investment analysis spreadsheet. It's 3 pages. We're going to look at income. Can you increase the amount of cash flow or income your portfolio produces annually? Income so critical in retirement. Bob and I are going to show you how to optimize that. We're going to look at fees. Are you being overcharged on your investments? What about those annuities, mutual funds? You're being charged a lot and you don't even know it. We're going to break down all the fees in your portfolio and see if we can reduce the cost of your investing. And we're going to look at diversification. What risk do you have in your portfolio? What pitfalls do you have in your portfolio? We're going to point them out to make sure that your portfolio is bulletproof. And then we're going to tie it all together into one total financial master plan to determine, are you going to outlive your money? Is your money going to outlive you? Using strategies now we've worked on our family for 40 years to take your family from point A to point B with the least amount of risk and the highest odds of success.
So give us a call at 844-PLAN-NYC. That's 844-752-6692. If you're one of the next 10 callers and you have over $200,000 saved for retirement, our team will run for you our total financial master plan. No obligation, no cost, but you got the call. 844-PLAN-NYC. That's 844-752-6692. This is No Pain, No Gain Financial Radio.
It's time for the weekly No Pain, No Gain market update with the team at Payne Capital Management here in New York City.
Good morning. This is Bob Payne, Chief Investment Officer here at Payne Capital Management. And the Dow closed down on Thursday, snapping a 9-session winning streak, coming one day after the Federal Reserve renewed its commitment to raising rates in December and announcing it's going to raise rates 3 times next year. They're also going to begin QT, that's their quantitative tightening program, in order to reduce their massive $4.5 trillion balance sheet. Now, that came as a result of the Fed's actions under quantitative easing. Quantitative tightening, QT, is the opposite of quantitative easing, QE. See, the Fed's no longer going to reinvest the interest from that bond portfolio, or are they going to buy new bonds when the bonds mature? And they may even start to sell bonds. Now, what did that do to the bond market? Bond yields rose slightly on the week, pushing down bond prices, but bonds are still up for the year, and the 10-year Treasury is now yielding 2.25%, below where it was at the beginning of 2017. So with the stock market hitting record highs, bonds up for the year, and rising home prices, we are now the wealthiest Americans in history. U.S. household net worth reached a record $96.2 trillion in the second quarter, the Federal Reserve reported on Thursday. Now, that's up dramatically from a decade ago when household net worth stood at $68.2 trillion, and that was just before the recession hit. We've come a long way in 10 years. So where do we go from here? Well, according to Sam Stovall at the Center for Financial Research and Analysis, whenever the market finishes up in both August and September, now these are typically down months for the year, the S&P 500 gains on average 2% in the final 3 months of the year and rise 13 out of 16 times. Now, with August already in the books as an up month and September is up so far, and with a week to go, things are looking pretty good. Will Sam Stovall's prediction come true for a good finish to the year? Stay tuned and stay invested. So if you're sitting there wondering, am I positioned for this big booming bull market? Why sit there and wonder when you could know? Give us a call at 844-PLAN-NYC. That's 844-752-6692. This is Bob Payne. We are No Pain, No Gain Financial Radio.
With a constantly changing financial landscape, having a written, customized plan is more important than ever. In New York City, turn to the team at Payne Capital Management. Call 844-PLAN-NYC to schedule a complimentary financial review. That's 844-PLAN-NYC.
It's Ryan Payne, Bob Payne, No Pain, No Gain Financial Radio. And one of the goals here at Payne Capital Management for Bob and I is to make sure that you get the best information available and can cut through the noise to make sure you're making the best planning decisions. And one of the most important elements of your retirement is going to be choosing how to take Social Security. And there's a lot of ways to do it. So Bob and I put together a guide to help you maximize Social Security. And if you want to get access to that guide, simply text to 555-888 and just put the word in bullish. That's BULLISH ISH to, again, 555-888. Text the word bullish, BULLISH, and get your free copy of Maximizing Social Security. That way you can start thinking about the best way to take that income stream. And in this segment, we want to talk about fourth quarter planning. As we head into the fourth quarter of the year, it's hard to believe 2017 almost over. Let's discuss some of the key financial manners, Bob, that we need to focus on right now at the end of the year. And one of the ones I think about is evaluating your IRA or Roth contributions. What kind of retirement plan contributions can we make before year end?
Yeah, that's so critical, Rye. It's if you don't get it done by the end of December, you miss the opportunity. I mean, remember, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, these are the only legal tax shelters available to us as citizens today, and it's a sin not to take full advantage of it. At the very least, make sure you're taking advantage of the company match. And, probably you're sitting there listening saying, I've done all that, but don't forget about your children. Don't forget about your grandchildren. As they enter the workforce, make sure that they're taking full advantage of this tax shelter opportunity. And top of that, it's not just making sure you're contributing the max to your 401k or your IRA or Roth, but also think about your required minimum distribution. If you're, 70.5 this year, now's probably a good time to start taking some of those distributions. The market hit an all-time record high this week, right? Don't you think that's a great idea?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the one thing is we always say is be proactive, not reactive when it comes to your portfolio. So you want to make decisions when the wind's really behind you.
Another thing that people aren't taking advantage of because they weren't able to a couple of years ago are the HSA, the health savings accounts. People with plans that didn't qualify now may qualify. So that's something you should be talking to your HR department about. Don't you agree?
Yeah, exactly right, Bob. I mean, you may think you're not eligible for it, but even if they don't offer one through your company, you still might be able to open a health savings account. And I have to say, you are out of your mind if you're not looking into this. If you're working now, especially if you have a family, that's a huge tax advantage you can possibly take advantage of right now. The other thing that I think about with end of year planning is offsetting gains with losses, doing what we call tax swaps. And you might think to yourself, well, I don't need any losses right now, but if you have any losses on your portfolio and maybe you like the investment that you're in, you can swap into a very similar investment and take the tax loss. And why I like to do that is because it gives you flexibility. And I'll give you an example. I have a client last year. We swapped out any losses that he had in his portfolio, and he was a little reluctant to do it. He says, well, I don't want to book losses. I don't want to sell something at a loss. And in that same year, he sold a lot of real estate for a huge capital gain, and we were able to use those losses that we booked on a stock portfolio, which had nothing to do with his real estate, and that helped him offset gains elsewhere. So by taking those losses and swapping out of things, it gives you the flexibility to use those losses when you want to lose them, and it might not even be for your portfolio in the future.
That's a great idea, Rye. It's like you put money in the bank for a rainy day. You take losses, put it in the loss bank for a sunny day to offset a capital gain, or you can actually just offset some ordinary income every year until you use it up. So it never goes to waste. And by the way, no one cares about your cost basis except for the IRS. So any way you can maximize minimizing taxes is a brilliant strategy. As you always say, money saved in taxes is just as green as the money you make in your portfolio.
No truer words have been spoken, Bob. And the other thing to look at, too, and this is something we do every year for our clients, and I think it's really important to do, especially if you're getting closer or planning on retirement, is just get an update of all your retirement income streams. So if you're going to receive a pension, take a look at that. When are you going to receive it? And we just talked about Social Security, deciding on when you're going to take Social Security, and that's another reason why you may want to download our guide to give you some ideas about Social Security. But also, you want to start to model out what your portfolio income is going to look like. What are you receiving in portfolio income? Are there changes you want to make to your portfolio to drive more income so that when you are ready to pull from your portfolio on an annual basis, you have enough cash flow coming in to meet all your expenses?
Right, that's so true. You want to be on top of everything that you're entitled to. For example, I turn 65 next year, and guess what? I get a pension from old Mother Merrill, right?
I'll tell you what, Bob, that's pretty sweet. There's no reason for you to retire just because you're receiving a pension now.
Well, it was interesting. I called them to get an update, because it's in my financial plan, and they had the wrong phone number, the wrong email address, and the wrong mailing address. So you may have worked for a company and they're mailing you information about your benefit and they can't find you. So you want to be certain that you should have a trusted advisor, a fiduciary, who's doing that work for you on an annual basis.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll mention, we just talked about earlier, is your advisor talking about rebalancing while the wind's at your back? I think about this. We're getting very complacent now. Markets are going up. And remember the old Warren Buffett quote, which we love to use on this show: when the tide goes out, you can see who's been swimming naked. And when everything's going really, really well, that's where you make the most mistakes. So if you're not proactively taking those profits on your portfolio, especially like you just said, Bob, the market's at an all-time high, you're not rediversifying money into things that are out of favor, taking risk off the table. Because the other thing is, if the market's been going up and up and up, odds are now you have way more money in stocks than you should. And invariably, at some point, we are going to see the markets pull back in the future. And when we do, had you not taken profits along the way, you're going to feel that pain, no pun intended. It's going to be pretty severe. So you have to think about those things right now and make sure your advisor's talking to you about rebalancing.
It's so true, Ryan. My experience over 40 years, I find that most people have way too much risk in their portfolio when the markets are high and the greed is at the highest level. So there's never a bad time to rebalance towards your target allocation. If you don't have a target allocation for your portfolio, and if you would like a window into your financial life, what we'd like to offer, if you're one of the next few callers and you've saved at least $200,000 for retirement, Ryan and I will run for you our renowned Total Financial Master Plan. Now, there's no obligation. There's no cost. And if you're one of the next few callers, here's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to review your tax return, not us, but our CPA partner, to be certain that you're taking advantage of every tax benefit available to you. We're going to have your estate plan reviewed by our estate planning attorney to make sure that things are titled properly and that your will is not an IOU to the IRS. Don't even bother opening the envelopes. Just stick it in a shopping bag, bring it in, we'll do all the work. We're going to take all of your investments, regardless of where they're held, and reduce it to our simple investment analysis spreadsheet. This is a document that takes all of your investments and breaks it down into the three key elements of success: income, fees, and diversification. We're going to make sure that you're able to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges to make sure that you're truly diversified and that you're getting the return for the risk you're currently taking. We're going to look at all the costs of investing, especially those hidden costs that are buried deep in the prospectus of your mutual fund or in that big annual annuity contract. We're going to look at income. We want to be certain that you get the maximum amount of income that your portfolio can generate on an annual basis. And lastly, we're going to tie it all together into a wealth projection that will answer that age-old question: will you outlive your money, or will your money outlive you? Utilizing strategies that we have been perfecting now for over 40 years. We want to help take your family from your financial point A to your goals, to your dreams, to your point B with the least amount of risk and as much certainty as any fiduciary can provide.
So don't waste time. Give us a call right now at 844-PLAN NYC. That's 844-752-6692. Be one of the next 10 callers if you have over $200,000 saved for retirement at 844-PLAN NYC. That's 844-752-6692. Get the full review done now. Here's your opportunity to do it at 844-PLAN NYC. That's 844-752-6692. This is No Payne, No Gain Financial Radio.
At Payne Capital Management, we understand how crucial Social Security is to your retirement. However, Social Security is confusing, and there are many ways to claim your benefits. That's why we've developed 10 strategies for maximizing your Social Security benefits. If you text the word bullish to 555-888, we'll send you a link to download your free copy. Simply text the word bullish to 555-888. and you'll receive a link to register. The Social Security system is complex. Make sure you're making the most of your benefits. Get started today by texting the word bullish to 555-888. That's BULLISH to 555-888. Text the word bullish to 555-888.
It's time for Financial Pornography of the Week. This is where Bob and I scour the daily financial news and call out the biggest offenders of offering obscene and profane financial guidance to help you protect yourself from making any ill-advised financial decisions. Big Bob, what'd you find this week in the world of financial pornography?
Well, Rye, I found a prediction on where the Dow's headed from one of the greatest investors in the history of the planet.
I don't remember making any predictions lately, Bob, but enlighten me.
I'm sorry, Rye. Not you. It was actually Warren Buffett.
Oh.
He was absolutely credited as the smartest investor in history. Now, Warren's 87 years old, and he said that the Dow's headed a lot higher. What number do you think he put on the Dow, Rye?
I'm going to say that the Dow today is just over 22,000. I'm going to take a wild guess. Let's say 40,000. He's a pretty bullish guy.
He's extremely bullish. He says the Dow's to go over 1 million.
Wow, 1 million. When?
In 100 years.
Well, it's not that long if you think about it. For it to hit 1 million, that's incredible.
You know, it does sound kind of ridiculous, but if you think about it, it would take a 3.9% annual gain for the Dow to hit Mr. Buffett's 1 million milestone in September of 2117. He says his only regret is that he won't be around to see it since he's 87 years old. Now, does that sound ridiculous?
That's a low return. No, because the Dow is actually probably averaged closer to, I'm going to guess, 7-8% over the past 100 years. So if you're saying more like 3% returns or 4% returns, that's lower than the returns we've seen for the last century.
That's right. If the market just compounds at the nominal rate of 5.7% annually like it has over the last 100 years, we're going to hit Warren's target of 1 million. So it just goes to show you, it's just if you're a long-term investor, you've got time on your side. And he also says that anyone who shorts America, anyone who shorts the stock market, you've got a fool because they've never been right. He said, talk about investors who have been 100% wrong, have been people who have bet against the U.S. economy over the last 200 years.
That's a really good point, and I think right now that's really timely advice because, first off, how many of us have missed the last 8-year bull market because we keep expecting the other shoe to drop, right? I mean, there's been so many reasons to be negative about the market now for 8 years, and it continues to march higher, and I'm still seeing that. In fact, I had an email from a client this past week saying, we're definitely due for a market crash. It's always dangerous to use affirmations like, affirmative words like definite, right? There's no definite when it comes to anything, when it comes to predicting the market, first off. And, he just basically sent me this email saying that, we got to get prepared. There's going to be a crash. And I think there's a lot of reasons to feel that way right now. Everything from what's going to happen in North Korea, right? What's going to happen with inflation going up and interest rates. So, there's a lot of concern around that. And the one thing, it's almost like, well, I'm worried about the market's going to crash because of geopolitical risk right now. And you hear a lot of the prognosticators or financial pornography out there talking about how the market's at this high valuation right now. And then if you're worried about interest rates going up because we think inflation's going to happen, you're worried about the bond market. So you're sitting here as an investor thinking, is there any way to put my money? And meanwhile, you're sitting in cash at 0.001%. And just going back to what you're talking about here, Bob, Warren Buffett, smartest investor, not me, who's talking about how in face of all the geopolitical risk we've seen in the past, all the economic uncertainty, over time, markets just go higher and higher. It makes no sense to worry about what's going to happen in the short term, and there's no way to predict it.
No way whatsoever. But it's almost like predicting the weather, right? You can't predict the weather, day to day. But we know in New York, it's going to be really cold in February. So longer-term forecast, you can be pretty certain. Short-term, it's a loser's game. And, being short America has been a loser's game, and it will continue to be a loser's game, according to the great investor Warren Buffett.
Yeah, and I think I'll just add to that, too, when it comes to building your portfolio. You just have to be prepared for everything. You can't make decisions that are all or none. So, to say right now, hey, the market's definitely going to crash and taking all your money out of the market. Well, if the market just continues to go higher, you'll never get that move back again. You'll miss the whole thing. But on the flip side, you have to be smart. You have to hedge. You have to diversify. Just in case there is a correction, you want to make sure that you have money exposed to bonds. Owning your bonds outright, not bond funds like we talk about. If the U.S. economy does putter out here a little bit, you have to make sure that you have money overseas in the foreign markets. You have money allocated to things like real estate, commodities. So point is, you have to be prepared for every scenario that can happen, and only a diversified portfolio can really do that.
Right, you're absolutely correct. Diversification is the only answer. And really, in terms of thinking about corrections, they're going to happen, but you can't predict when they'll happen. What you have to do is have a plan for what you will do when a correction happens, how you're going to take advantage of it. Remember, every dip in history has been temporary, and every dip in history has been met by record highs after the event. So if every dip in history has been temporary, then every dip in the future will be a buying opportunity. So it's never smart to be all in cash or all in stocks. It's always smart to have a diversified portfolio where you win regardless of what happens over time.
Exactly right. So stop anticipating. And if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I need to get a real plan in place, not one that's betting on what's going to happen in the future, here's your shot to do it. If you're one of the next 10 callers and you have over $200,000 saved for retirement, Bob and I will run for you a real financial plan, our total financial master plan, and we'll do it with no obligation or cost. It's a full review that gets you retirement ready. If you bring in last year's tax return, we literally will have our CPA partner review it. Let's make sure that you're optimizing your portfolio for taxes and you're not paying unnecessary taxes. If you bring in, dust off those wills and trusts, take them out of the basement, they haven't been updated for over a decade, we'll have our estate planner review those to make sure that your estate plan is up to date, what changes you need to make to it to make sure that that's set up as well. And then finally, bring in all of your statements from all the different financial institutions where they're held, insurance policies, 401ks, retirement accounts, savings accounts, brokerage accounts. We're going to take all of it, put it on a simple 3-page document, our investment analysis spreadsheet, and we're going to look at all the things you need to know for retirement. We're going to look at income. Can you increase the income or cash flow your portfolio produces? You need income in retirement. Let's optimize the income on your portfolio. We're going to look at fees. Are you being overcharged on your investments? Those high-cost annuities, mutual funds, investment accounts. We're going to go through all of them, show you all the fees you're paying, and show you how we can reduce cost on your portfolio. And we're going to look at diversification. Is your portfolio properly diversified to prepare for anything that can happen in the markets? We're going to point out the pitfalls in your portfolio and help you get properly diversified. Then we're going to tie it all together into one total financial master plan, and we're going to determine, are you going to outlive your money or is your money going to outlive you? Utilizing strategies now we have worked on for literally over 40 years to take your family from point A to point B with the least amount of risk and the highest odds of success.
Don't delay. Give us a call at 844-PLAN-NYC. That's 844-752-6692. If you're one of the next few callers and you've saved over $200,000 for your retirement, we'll run for you our total financial master plan. Now, there's no obligation and there's no cost, but you've got to call 844-PLAN-NYC. That's 844-752-6692. This is Bob. This is Rye. We are No Payne, No Gain Financial Radio.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Time for some New York City trivia. Did you know there's a man in New York City who mines the sidewalk cracks for gold? If that doesn't sound like a great retirement plan to you, then keep listening to No Payne, No Gain. And don't make financial planning harder than it should be.
It's Ryan Payne, Bob Payne, No Payne, No Gain Financial Radio. And Bob and I really want to make sure that you have all the best tools available to you to make the best retirement plan decisions. You know, one of our goals here at Payne Capital Management is education, 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 to make sure that you're prepared, you make the best decisions when you're preparing for retirement and in retirement. And Social Security is such a big part of that, and there's a lot of different ways for you to take Social Security. Bob and I put together a guide on maximizing Social Security, which you can access if you text to 555-888 and simply put the word bullish in. That's bullish, BULLISH. Again, text to 555-888, the word bullish, BULLISH, and you can get our guide for maximizing Social Security. Again, you just want to make the best decisions you possibly can around retirement. And if you want to learn a little bit more about Bob and myself, you can always check us out on the World Wide Web at bebullish.com. That's www.bebullish.com. And if you ever have a question for myself or Bob, you can always email us, questions@bebullish.com. That's questions@bebullish.com. And Bob and I will respond to your email. And if it's a really good question, we'll answer it right here on the show. And as always, Bob, we got some very good questions this week. And the first question comes in from Tony, who's over in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn. He writes in, Bob, I've always handled my retirement planning without any professional help and seem to have done just fine. But is there anything important that someone like me might be missing by doing everything myself? So Tony's a do-it-yourselfer investor, Bob.
What might you be missing, Tony? How about everything? First of all, you think you're doing fine, but by what measure? You're your own critic. It's tough to be critical of yourself. When you're managing your own retirement planning, you're managing your own financial plan, that's a full-time job. You know, that's what we do for a living, and that's what we do every day and been doing every day for 42 years. I like to think when I'm retired that I'll be doing something with my time other than working. And you may enjoy it, and you may have been a professional advisor in your past, but is your spouse, and that's the thing you got to think about. What happens to your spouse if you're no longer around? And we talked about this earlier in the show today about how critical it is to have a fiduciary available to step in when you're no longer as interested or you find out you're not doing as well as you should or could. You know, Rye, we talked about this a lot today, and we find this happens more often than not.
Yeah, the other thing I find, too, just to add to that, if you are a do-it-yourselfer investor, is it's one thing when you're working and you're in what we call that wealth accumulation stage where along the way, you're going to hit those bear markets or those big market corrections, and you might see your portfolio go down significantly like we saw back in 2008. And before that, during the tech bubble burst, well, that's when I got into the industry around 2000, 2001. And it's like, well, I'm still working. I can make it back, and markets do recover over time. And all that is very true. But once you start to traverse over into what we call the wealth distribution stage, the stakes are a lot higher because you don't have the time to make it up like you used to. And if you're a do-it-yourselfer, what I find is you are a very savvy, educated investor, but when it comes to risk management, there's a lot of times holes in what you're doing and you don't even know it. And if the market does correct on you, you could be in really bad shape because, again, now you're close to retirement, you're in retirement, you don't have the time to make it up again. And I think the mentality is, well, if I hire a financial advisor or a fiduciary, all of a sudden I have to give up control of something I really love. And I think that's the wrong attitude. I think the idea of having an advisor in retirement is like having a partner or having your own, I call it your financial concierge, someone who's going to help you say, hey, look at this risk you have in your portfolio. You may want to consider doing something different. Really a sounding board or someone who's on your team to help make sure that you're making the right decisions.
So I think what you're saying, Rye, is it's important to hire a financial advisor, not a financial dictator.
Yeah, or a financial coach. But you don't want a financial dictator because it's not really about relinquishing control. It's really about making sure that you have putting the safeguards in place and you have a different set of eyes on things to help you make those decisions.
One thing that some people learn in life is that the older you get, the least you can afford to make a major mistake. So,
absolutely.
You know, just like any great golf pro on the tour, they have a coach who tells them whether their swing's online or not. Same thing. Having a financial coach is no different than having a sports coach or having a trainer. It's always good to make sure that you're doing things correctly as opposed to just doing them.
Yeah, you're still involved in the process, but you have someone making sure that, right, the form is right, like when you go to the gym, so you're not going to pull a muscle. Yeah, you're not going to pull your back out like I did 3 times this last month. But that's another story altogether. And that also ties into that, again, that 360 portal, Bob, which, I mean, I think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But having technology or the capability to have all of your stuff in one portal that your spouse can access, that you can access. Because the other thing is, if you work with an advisor, you don't have to give all your money up front. So if you want to have accounts in different places that you're managing, at least you have a consolidated place that everything's being looked at. And you have a watchdog who's able to look at all those things. So even those cowboy accounts or cowgirl accounts you may have separately, you have a set of eyes that's looking at all those things. I think it's a perfect place
I
to go.
had a great meeting this week with our attorney, and who's been a client for 40 years, a good friend. And I set him up on his 360 financial portal. And he said, man, this is fabulous. And I said, well, this is really not for you. And he said, what do you mean? I said, it's for your spouse. I said, let's face it. I've been working with you for 40 years. I love your wife. We've been great friends. We've never once talked about investments. She doesn't have any interest. What happens if you're not here any longer? This is for her to have everything in one spot, to see where everything is, to see how everything works, how everything's titled. And he starts to smile, and I go, what's so funny? He said, I just had this conversation, and I told her the other day that I had it all in one spot, and it was real easy. And he looked at me, and he said, hey, Bob, thanks for making me an honest man. Because he really didn't have it set up. And now he has everything in place, and he can just pull up the website and show her in one spot. Here's where everything is. Here's what it means, and never have to worry about it again. And if you're sitting here wondering, do I have a 360 financial portal? Do I have a window into my financial life? Well, why sit there and wonder when you can know? What we'd like to offer any of the next few callers who have at least $200,000 saved for retirement, Ryan and I will run for you our total financial master plan. Now, there's no obligation and there's no cost. And if you're one of the next few callers, here's exactly what we'll do for you. We're going to review your tax return and make sure you're not paying any of those nasty, unnecessary taxes. We're going to have our estate attorney review your estate plan to be certain that it's not an IOU to the IRS. If you haven't created an estate plan, if you don't have a will, if you don't have a trust, we'll get you set up so that you can get that process in motion. But lastly, we're going to look at all of your investments. We're going to review every investment statement. You don't have to do any work. Just grab all those envelopes that came in for the last quarter, stick them in a bag, come in and see us. We'll break it down into our famous investment analysis spreadsheet. Now, this is a simple 3-page document that distills all that information into one simple view, and it characterizes the key ingredients of a successful portfolio. We'll review your income, your fees, and your diversification. We want to make sure that you don't have all your eggs in one basket, that you're getting the return for the risk you're taking. We're going to look at all the costs of your portfolio, not just the costs that are evident, but the hidden costs that are buried deep in that prospectus of that mutual fund or in that annuity contract. We're going to look at your income and make sure that you're able to optimize the amount of income you'll need to fund your retirement or to stay retired with a more dependable income flow. And lastly, we're going to create for you a wealth projection which will answer that age-old question: are you going to outlive your money, or will your money outlive you? We want to help take your family from your financial point A to your goals, to your dreams, to your point B with the least amount of risk and the highest odds of success.
So give us a call. Don't waste time. We have a few slots left at 844-PLAN NYC. That's 844-752-6692. Take advantage. We have a couple slots left. If you're one of the next few callers at 844-PLAN NYC, that's 844-752-6692. This is a full financial review at 844-PLAN NYC. That's 844-752-6692. This is No Pain, No Gain Financial Radio.
Here's this week's Spotlight on No Pain, No Gain.
It's Ryan Payne, Bob Payne, No Pain, No Gain. And Bob and I, one of our goals here at Payne Capital Management is education. I can't say it enough. And when it comes to your retirement, Social Security is a huge decision you're going to have to make. That's why Bob and I put together our guide to maximizing Social Security. And if you want access to that guide at no cost, simply text us at 555-888 and simply write the word or type the word bullish. That's BULLISH. Simply text that word to 555-888. Text the word bullish, BULLISH, and check out our guide on maximizing Social Security. And it's time for our Spotlight segment. Each week what we do is we dissect a real financial plan, uncover the flaws or what we call pain points, that's Payne, so you can avoid the same mistakes with your own planning and investing. And we have a very special guest on the show this morning, Payne Capital Management Star Certified Financial Planner, Courtney Dominguez. Good morning, Court. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's always a pleasure to hang with you on a Sunday.
Always.
Not that we don't spend enough time hanging together as it is. But you and I actually worked on a case together this past week. Why don't you give us a little bit of the background and some of the mistakes this couple was making with their planning?
Yeah. And actually I kind of like working on cases like this because it's not necessarily mistakes that I saw. They've actually done a really good job of saving.
Yep.
And one of the really big vehicles that people use for saving and they really utilized were their 401k plans. Because it's a really good way that you can put money away. You don't even see it. It's not going to come through your paycheck. And now they have this nice lump sum built up for them.
Right.
So we did their planning and we said, well, you guys are definitely on track to be able to retire based on the day that you guys want to retire. But now you have all of these assets that have to come out in retirement. And now that's all going to become income to you. And it's really more of a tax burden that we're going to see for them. So this is more saying, well, you guys have done a good job of savings. How can we maximize this for you? How can we minimize the taxes and structure a plan so this is going to really work in your favor?
Yeah, and this is a very common thing when you've saved so much in retirement plans that all of your savings now is literally in tax-deferred 401ks and IRAs. And we have that proverbial, your retirement plans become tax time bombs because at age 70 and a half, you have to start taking money from your retirement plans. And that's a lot of money that's going to have to come out once you turn 70 and a half because the IRS forces you to do that. So you're going to have like a tax nightmare ahead of you.
Exactly. And they actually have kind of this unique point where once you hit that magic age of 70 and a half, the IRS is going to start making you take money out. That's going to be taxable income to you. But we can structure it so we can actually start to get some money out for them and put it into things like a Roth, which will get them tax-free growth going forward before they hit 70 and a half. And we're trying to structure it so that their income is going to be really low for a couple years. And we're going to keep it low because we have some other income sources for them that we can play with. We can decide, well, how do you take your pension? How do you take your annuities? When do you take your Social Security? And keep that in effect with also trying to minimize their future taxes once their RMDs hit in. So there's a lot of planning that goes involved, but I think we actually can really help them by really maximizing that couple years that they're going to have before 70 and a half. So that way they have a plan in place.
So it doesn't really come down to making as much money. It's not really about how much money can I make. It's how much money can I keep is sort of the process here.
Exactly.
You know, I think another thing that's important here is one of the biggest misconceptions when you go into retirement is you're going to be in a higher tax bracket. I've heard there's a fallacy out there that you think, well, I'm going to pay a lot of taxes in retirement. My tax bracket's not going to go down. Well, that's completely untrue if you do planning ahead of time. And that was the great thing about this couple is they're still 4 or 5 years away from retirement. So all the planning we can do today is going to make their retirement really tax efficient, and we're going to create tax benefits that are just awesome. But these are things that can't get done unless you start planning today.
Exactly.
Courtney, I'm looking at the analysis that you did for this couple, and I see that the cash flow under your proposal jumps dramatically from the income that they currently generate. How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, and actually this couple specifically, we had a good talk about that because a lot of their assets right now are basically in cash alternatives, which are getting virtually no income. And I see that often when people want some sort of safety in their portfolio and they look at cash as that type of safety. But the problem is it doesn't generate any income. It actually is depreciating if you factor in inflation. You're actually losing money on that over time. So there's other ways of going about safety in their portfolio, which we really like to use bonds for that. So you're getting income, but you're still getting the safety or a principal. And we can dramatically increase their income by doing that. And in the next several years, they don't need that income. This is still in their 401k plans, but this is just going to grow upon itself. It's going to compound and make sure that they get more shares that they can reinvest. And that's going to give them more income, and it's going to really snowball upon itself. Then in retirement, they're going to have a lot more of an income stream if they're generating more income in their portfolio. So twofold, it makes a lot of sense to get out of cash and get into income paying investments.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's, you may have money in cash for safety, but you're earning nothing. So your point, you're losing. And on the flip side, your other option are things like bond funds. And if you listen to the show, we don't like bond funds because bond funds don't come due. So what you did here, Court, which I love, is we put together a proposed institutionally managed portfolio of bonds where you own them, they come due, and by doing that, we can increase their income by $24,000 a year. That's insane. And if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, this is the kind of plan I need. I need a plan for taxes in retirement. I need to optimize taxes. I need to increase the income on my portfolio so I can live on it in retirement. Here's your shot to do it. We still have a couple slots left. If you're one of the next few callers and you have over $200,000 saved for retirement, myself, Bob, and Courtney, certified financial planner, will run for you our total financial master plan, and we'll do it with no obligation or cost. It's a full review like this where we're going to look at taxes. Can you optimize taxes in retirement? We'll help you plan for that. We're going to look at your estate plan, legal docs. If you bring those in, we'll have our estate planning partner review those to make sure that your estate plan is up to date, what changes you want to make. And then finally, bring in those statements, those 401ks, retirement accounts, annuities, insurance policies, brokerage accounts. We're going to take it all, plot it on a simple 3-page document, our famous investment analysis spreadsheet. We're going to look at all these things. Can we increase the income on your portfolio? We're able to increase this family's portfolio by $24,000 a year. That's insane. We're going to look at fees. Are you being overcharged on your investments? We're going to break down all the fees to see if we can reduce the cost on your portfolio. And we're going to look at diversification. Do you own bond funds? Do you have a properly diversified portfolio? Do you have institutionally managed bonds? We're going to help you create the right portfolio for retirement. Then we're going to tie it all together into one total financial master plan to determine, is your money going to outlive you, or are you going to outlive your money utilizing strategies we've been working on for literally 40 years to take your family from point A to point B with the least amount of risk and the highest odds of success?
Don't miss out. We have a few slots left. Give us a call at 844-PLAN-NYC. That's 844-752-6692. If you're one of the next few callers and you've saved over $200,000 for your retirement, our team will run for you our total financial master plan. No obligation, no cost, but you got to give a call to 844-PLAN-NYC. That's 844-752-6692.
Well, another awesome show this morning. Courtney, pleasure to have you here.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Big Bob, any big plans for the rest of your Sunday?
Of course, Rye. We have the Eagles-Giants game this afternoon. Can't wait.
Well, we can't say that we're from Philadelphia or people are just going to turn off our show and never listen again. We say we're not rooting for the Giants. So I won't say anything on that subject. Thanks, guys. Great show. And as always, be bullish.
Information provided on today's show is provided for information purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with an investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.